Well, the business of the commission. For those at home who did not hear, I've called to order the 166th meeting of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Chairman Crosby and Commissioner Cameron are elsewhere today, and so the three of us who constitute a quorum will proceed. The first item of business, as usual, is approval of the minutes. The first set of minutes is that of those of September 24, 2015. They are in the book, and I'd move their approval as they appear there, subject to any topographical or mechanical corrections we need to make hereafter.
I would second that.
Any discussion? No? Then all in favor? Aye. Say
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And the ayes have it unanimously. The second set of minutes is October 1, 2015. They too are in the book. I likewise would move their admission, their approval with the same reservations.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it unanimously. That ministerial task completed, let's turn to our interim executive director and the director of the IEB, Director Wells. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As far as the
Morning.
general update, there are no issues of concern to report to the Commission as far as the matter being handled at the agency level. As far as the first item for your consideration, first item under consideration, I'm going to have Joan Matsumoto, our Chief Project Manager, update you on the after-action project that the Commission is undertaking right now.
All right.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm reporting on the activities underway to deliver an after-action report regarding an internal assessment of the Mass Gaming Commission's activities undertaken between February 27, 2014 and June 24, 2015. This is a 16-month period in which the Commission issued the sole Category 2 license to Plain Ridge Park Casino, and PPC opened its doors to the public. An after-action report is a tool. It's been in use since the time of Julius Caesar as a means of improving performance in battle. And today, these kinds of reports are used by police forces, emergency management organizations, and even in the competitive video gaming community. The report is authored by those who participated in a specific goal-oriented event. And the goal is to examine what went well, what needs improvement, and how to do better in the next event. The results of the publicized report may even be beneficial to other organizations. The main purpose in all cases is to create a culture of continuous improvement. And in this culture, plans are developed and executed, but then assessed and adjusted in order to develop an improved plan for the next event. As this cycle is repeated, the culture of We've passed the planning and execution stages, and the assessment is underway. We're working with MGC's internal and external partners and have completed frank discussions focused on identifying what worked, what might be improved, and what corrective actions should be considered. The key activities being reviewed and analyzed by teams made up of relevant participants have been divided into 6 clusters, and each cluster might contain multiple topics. For example, in community relations, we cover the topics of ombudsman, open meetings, public records, intergovernmental coordination, and the press. Each team is following the same assessment process for their key activities and its topics. Everything is linked back to the goals and objectives for opening Plain Ridge Park Casino in compliance with Massachusetts laws and regulations and the policies of the Commission. We capture as much knowledge and feedback as we can about our capabilities, activities, and resources, and come to a consensus about major strengths and areas for improvement. At this time, we've completed the checked steps you see on the screen and are now in the analyze phase. This is where we look closely at the strengths and areas for improvement to determine which warrant consideration as best practices, which could be continued or even adopted in other aspects of the operation, and which require corrective action to ensure a better performance next time. We even attempt to predict what changes might be necessary based on differing conditions, which will be an important consideration as we move forward to full resort casinos, with hotels and table game operations. Finally, we'll prioritize which of the best practices and which of the corrective actions should be implemented and in what sequence to enable improvement. The final report will include all of the components you see here, and we hope to deliver it before the close of the calendar year. I want to thank everyone who's supporting this effort and who has taken the time to provide thoughtful feedback, and I want to thank the commissioners for their support. If there are any questions, I'm happy to attempt to answer them.
Just one, not so much a question as a comment. And as you and I met earlier to go through your presentation, I think what was interesting was the participation of Turner Construction, who we had a lot of dealings with in terms of looking at their diversity goals in the construction workforce. But from what you shared with me, I think it was important to highlight the fact that they came to the table, they didn't have to, they have completed the project, handed over the keys, and kind of moved on. But the fact that they were willing to give their time and effort and thoughts and opinions and comments into the process, I think, is rather commendable.
Yes, it was really refreshing. We were concerned about how frank and open people would feel, and they came to the table and were very interested in providing comments that would help not only the commission move forward, but the next construction company for the projects. So it was very frank, open, and helpful. So I hope we continue this process for other projects as well.
That's great.
Joan, this is a great summary, and I know there's a lot of work behind this. On the participants, the key people are clearly represented there, the key stakeholders, Penn National, and you mentioned Plain Ridge Park Casino staff. What about input from corporate, from Penn? Will there be some input from their perspective, or or much engagement, or can we assume that happens de facto when we hear from the general manager at Plain Ridge
So
Park?
we heard from the general manager and from the person in control and compliance, internal controls and compliance, but we also heard from their VP for development. So I'm not sure if that's corporate enough, but it was directly
Jack
related.
Rowan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and we're always open to, if there are further suggestions for people you would like to hear from, we could reach out.
Yeah, perhaps at some other iteration, or later in the process where there's more, I don't know, findings or
Yes.
or high-level action items.
Yes.
The input of corporate people might be also valuable. And I had a similar question with the other licensees. They, of course, were not active participants in this period, but I wonder whether asking for eventual input from them might be worthwhile in this effort, or whether we might have to.
I'm sorry, can you clarify which licensees you're speaking?
When an MGM, whether, as we anticipate or are contemplating, refining regulations, for example, when might it be important to engage with them or have a
It's a
conversation?
great point, and I want to make clear that this report does not attempt to solve any issue. It attempts to identify which issues need to be addressed and create a roadmap for addressing them. So regulations is one of the issues that came up, and what we would focus in on is basically which regulations are on the table, either requested by MGC staff or by the licensee themselves. And then when we move into the process by which you would attempt to change regulations, you folks would go through your process of proposing, having comment, and hearings, and that, I believe, will be the time to bring those folks in.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, along the same vein, I had a question on a slightly different take, but in the same direction. One of the things that we know we're going to have to do is scale up massively for
Absolutely.
the next two iterations of the process. So to what extent does this assessment process do more than say we need to scale up massively?
It says that, is this a priority on a list of 1 to 10? Is it 10 or is it 1? Or is it somewhere in between? And then how do we gather the resources, and fit things into the schedule to make sure we're ready to scale. So the comments throughout the assessment point where we said, what are the best things? What are the things that could be improved? What do you recommend for corrective action? And you'll see in the final report, littered throughout is scale, scale, scale. People know that this is coming, and so the question then becomes, how do we prioritize our existing resources? Do we determine that we need more resources to address this? What kind of time frame do we have, given the projected openings and known processes? So this report is an attempt to focus people's energy to get that question answered, and many others.
So is it a goal of this current process to do something more than, say, scaling up is a priority, scaling up in the licensing process, for example, is a priority 9? Or is that the end of this process and the beginning of the next process?
I believe that the latter is correct. It's the end of one process and the beginning of another. So some of the recommendations we may be able to adopt right away, immediately, without any further question, but others, which are going to take much more thought and resources, technical resources, human resources, et cetera, those are going to have to come out of a second process. We can't just have an answer off the top of our heads about, well, how do you scale up?
No, I know that,
Yes,
but it
yes.
seems to me that some of the same people who are involved in this process, Penn, for example,
Yes,
who's been through large and small things, their input might be invaluable.
absolutely.
Turner's input in, which is, they built big facilities and this facility, and they've done it, they're an excellent company. Their input on how to deal with some of the problems that we'll encounter in the larger construction projects may be
Absolutely.
invaluable. So the idea would be to finish this and then get those
Yes.
people together again for a
Yes.
second process?
Yes, so if you recall the slide that had all the cycles on it, once we finished our assessment and made adjustments, we then went into another planning phase. And that's what you gentlemen are speaking of. We have to have in-depth planning so that the next time we go to execute, we're better prepared.
Okay.
Joan, certainly the folks you identified as the participants were the people closest to the action. But we
Yes.
had some kind of tangential players, the town of Plainville itself, MassDOT, some of the other permitting agencies. Those all play a bigger role in the projects coming up. Is there a role, it's not necessarily based on how we function, but is there a role to, for those agencies to come in and give their own assessment of the process, their participation in it as well?
Yeah, and if you would like to suggest that they be included in this report, then we would look at, inviting them and adjusting, et cetera. But you could do it as a separate process as well.
Just something to think about. There's some critical pieces there that, again, talking about scale, are magnified. when you
Yes.
think of
I
next
think
new
what this
projects.
process does is it attempts to focus folks and begin an intensive engagement with those folks so that as we approach the next execution phase, we're more informed and aware, and at least we're making choices based on known facts and probabilities.
Okay.
So, when are we, do we have a time frame?
Yes.
For the report?
Yes,
Did you
we hope
mention
to
that?
deliver this before the close of the calendar year.
Calendar, you mentioned it, yes.
Next week, as the chairman returns, we will begin to dive deep on the analysis. So we've gotten the feedback. I think for my group, this is what worked best. I think this was an area we need to improve. And now what we do is we attempt to gather the metrics to confirm or disabuse people of those impressions and senses. After we gather the metrics, which is an intensive process, and some metrics may not be available, so we have to use proxy metrics or an estimation. Then we begin to review the prioritization. How do we decide which is the most important effort? And that is not merely just the one that has the greatest impact. As I said, the number one priority may be just, this is the simplest thing to take care of. Check it, it's done. Now it's part of our new operation.
Great. Well, something you mentioned, I want to really emphasize. Creating the culture of continuous improvement, I think, is really important. And, that obviously happens continuously. And,
Yes.
and it's an iterative process, and having that in mind and having people like you leading that effort and engaging everybody who needs to be engaged is really important.
Thank
So,
you. And
thank
we'll
you
know
for
we
that.
succeed if we go through at any kind of an event, whether that's an internal practice or it's got external participants, and the folks who participated are looking around saying, when are we going to sit down and give our feedback and decide what went well and what we need to improve? That's when you'll know you've got this culture
Yes,
growing.
that's a good point.
Any more?
Sounds great. Worked
Thank
for
you.
Caesar, and it's going to work for us.
Yes. Thank
Know
you,
how
sir.
well it panned out for
Great.
Thank
Caesar.
you.
but-
No,
Oh,
no,
it worked
Julius
quite
Caesar.
well. All right.
No, that's who I was talking about.
No, okay.
I don't mind refining battle plans, but
The next item on the agenda, Commissioners, is a Key Gaming Executive License approval for your consideration. This is for Stephanie Shockley. She currently has a temporary license. In January of 2015, she was promoted to surveillance manager for Plainridge Park Casino in Plainridge, Massachusetts. Prior to that promotion, she was a surveillance supervisor at the Hollywood Casino in Columbus, Ohio. She submitted all the required forms, supplemental document requests to the licensing division and the IEB, and investigators conducted the standard rigorous background check in the areas I've identified numerous times at public meetings, so I won't go through all the specific details on the areas that were covered. She was interviewed in person by the IEB State Police and financial investigators as part of the investigation protocol for key gaming employees. Investigators also conducted a financial responsibility evaluation, and that netted positive results. She attended Glenville State College in Glenville, West Virginia, where she graduated with a BS in Criminal Justice and Sociology, graduating in 2008. Prior to her current position, she held several positions, including, as I stated before, surveillance supervisor at the Hollywood Casino in Columbus, Ohio, and she was also a surveillance supervisor at the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races, and had been a surveillance agent at the Wheeling Island Hotel, Casino, and Racetrack in West Virginia. She was awarded gaming licenses by both the Ohio Casino Control Commission and the West Virginia Lottery. Both of her licenses were confirmed to be in good standing, and the jurisdictions reported no derogatory information relating to her licensure. During the course of the investigation, there were no significant investigative issues uncovered related to Ms. Shockley's application for licensure. So overall, she has demonstrated by clear and convincing evidence that she is suitable for licensure in Massachusetts, and therefore the IEB is recommending the commission find her suitable for a key gaming executive license. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? All right. As usual, a thorough and comprehensive report. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the commission approve the key gaming license for Ms. Shockley as Director of Surveillance. Is that?
Yes,
Title.
correct.
Second?
I second that.
Further discussion? I hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you, Director Wells.
That's all I have under my agenda items. I'll turn it over to Mark Vanderlyn for the Research and Responsible Gaming section.
All right, our Director of Responsible Gaming and Research, Director Vanderlinden. Good morning.
Morning.
I don't know
Morning.
if your mic's on. Oh, all right, all right.
It needs to be bright.
Now it's
Now
really
it's
green.
Really green, yeah.
Right. Well, good morning again.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm joined here with Trina Cranmer from Sci Games.
Good morning.
Hello. Just a little introduction. I'm actually the product manager for the pre-commitment system, which is actually what you're have renamed to Plain Management. So that's going to assist in responsible gaming at Plainridge Park.
Great, great.
Great to have you.
Good. Before we get started, just to ground this topic and the update on play management, I want to draw your attention back to the responsible gaming framework that almost a year ago, in December of 2014, the Commission had adopted. The framework, specifically Strategy 2, promotes that, or recommends that we support informed player choice. It identifies and describes specific measures that would support players' efforts to responsibly manage their gambling choices. One of the issues that was contemplated in that piece were specifically tools that included the ability for players to set limits or budgets of the amount that they spend gambling. Based on that, then in 2015, January of 2015, the Commission voted to adopt a play management system that included budget setting tools on a test basis at Plainridge Park Casino. We've engaged numerous stakeholders in the development of play management, including with me today, Trina from Saya Games, Plainridge Park Casino. We have worked very closely with the Division on Addiction, Cambridge Health Alliance, to both in terms of developing the evaluation component and the content piece of that.
You mean the content on the screens that the user will see?
That's correct.
Right.
Psy Games had a sort of off-the-shelf pre-commitment option. As we reviewed that option, we decided that there were a number of changes that, based on the Commission's recommendations, that we would want to change that off-the-shelf model to be specific for Massachusetts. And that included really making sure that it aligned and was fully integrated under the GameSense brand. Also within the framework, we talk about we want to, wherever possible, adopt an evidence-based approach. And where there is not strong evidence to support a strategy, that we use a precautionary approach. And that precautionary approach says where there is risk, we want, and there is not evidence to support a best practice, we want to begin investigating what alternatives we have here. And I think play management fits that very well. Play management, if you recall, was debated extensively earlier this year, at the end of last year, as we began looking at what the evidence was. How effective is it? How much would it cost? What would it look like on gaming machines? And quite honestly, the evidence was inconclusive. And it was based largely because it had not been consistently implemented in other jurisdictions. And the evidence that existed, there were numerous methodological flaws that overshadowed any of the findings. We're using a precautionary approach here. As I said, we've engaged the Cambridge Health Alliance Division on Addiction to build the evaluation component of this into the development of it. They are not able to join us here today, but I assure you they have been fully engaged with us in this process. What we want to present to you today is kind of the latest, give you the latest in terms of what the development is, what the screenshots look like as they will appear on the electronic gaming machine, EGM or slot machine, as well as what it will look like on the GameSense kiosk, one of which is on the floor now at Plainridge Park Casino. Another is in the wings, and we're ready to deploy once we have this set and ready to go. It is not, let me declare, it's not operational now at Plainridge Park Casino. We're looking at, we'll describe the timeline, but we're looking at December as the earliest that we would be able to implement at this point.
Let me just ask, before we turn to the detail, which I know we all are eagerly looking forward to hearing about. By the precautionary approach, you mean we're going to roll this out, we're going to put it in under a controlled system with a investigatory protocol, if you will, in back of it, and see what we learn.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we, the commission decided that we would not adopt this into regulation that would be without evaluation deployed across all of our licensees. We said that we want to test this tool out, given the fact that there is insufficient evidence to make that determination. We want to evaluate the effectiveness and the uptake of this tool to determine whether or not that we should move forward with it with other licensees. To do that, we need to make sure that evaluation is a central component to the tool. The Cambridge, and hence the Cambridge Health Alliance Division on Addiction being a very active partner so far in the development of the product, as well as building the evaluation of it.
Okay, thank you.
So, if I can get the, oh, the clock is- Okay, so this is actually a really exciting point of the development, where we can start showing you the actual
Yeah, it
product
is.
as it stands. We had a meeting of the Public Health Trust Fund Executive Committee 2 days ago. Commissioner Zuniga was chairing that meeting in the absence of Chairman Crosby. There was some great feedback from the Public Health Trust Fund Executive Committee in the content. So what you will see today does not reflect any changes to the content that we'll try to roll in from the Public Health Trust Fund. And that said, we continue to be open and look for your advice and direction on the content of this. So as we move through it, please understand that this is still, while we're getting close to that finish line, there's still room for feedback on it. Okay. Actually, I think I'll turn it over to Trina to kind of walk us through or introduce the slides. I will add my commentary as I've been very involved in this as well and worked closely with the Division on Addiction as to why we position or use different content the way we do.
Okay, so the first icon that you're seeing right there is the play management icon. So what we've designed is actually our content team has created 2 icons that will display at the EGM, or the electronic gaming machine, one of which is the play management icon that brings us into the piece about explaining how to set your budgets and rolls through how to enroll, modify your limits, and ultimately unenroll. So kind of the life cycle of somebody setting their budgets through play management. If we move to the next screen, we have the initial screen. So if you'll just kind of explaining the way this screen is, what we call this is our display manager. So any games that have the ability to touch screen, you'll be able to utilize this display manager. And it's in essence a picture-in-picture. So to the left, you'll see we have a play management information, and then to the right is actually the game. So although we are putting or displaying this information to the patrons, they still do have the ability to play the game or do anything that they have, so they don't have to pull their credits out of the system to be able to set their budgets and create that information within our system.
And if I could add, you'll notice that there is a play management icon on there, as well as a game sense icon. The game sense icon will show you in a little bit has a specific feature as well and provides very specific information. It's consistent, obviously, in color and font as play management. We position play management under the overarching game sense strategy to promote responsible gaming.
Can I ask a question? So the machine is first with the full game, right? When, let's say, nobody's playing it. If the player comes in and inserts their player card, would it take automatically to this split screen, or do they have to first touch the play management icon to come to this, what did you call this?
To this screen.
screen.
To the
Yeah.
also- That's
Or is that
actually a
still in the
very good
works?
question. So walking through the player experience is actually what we call it. The card will go in, and as soon as we receive that card in message, if they have never enrolled in play management before, a message does come down to the machine, and they are prompted with an enrollment. One thing that we've actually developed on the request of the MGC for our software was to actually say, if you get the enrollment message, but you determine you won't want to enroll at this time, we set a 30-day limit. So you won't receive any additional enrollment questions for that 30 days. Once that expires, then you'll receive another question, and then it'll continue for the next 30 days. But that is one key piece, thank you for bringing it up, is that to be able to set your budgets and become part of play management, you do need a loyalty card. So you must be part of Penn's Marquee Rewards program to be able to set your budgets.
I don't want to, I know this is still somewhat plastic, so I don't want to get too far down in the weeds, but what is the role of this screen? This is not then the first screen that the unenrolled user would see. This is a different screen, right?
Correct. This was actually part of what our team was doing, is showing different screens when we were building the content.
Right.
So this is actually what would pop up if you were to select the play management icon.
I got it.
So you'd receive the welcome.
All right. Okay. Okay.
This is actually what you were asking about in regards to the enrollment. So what we've determined is, and actually this is input from, from all the groups involved, but to explain about play management before immediately popping them into the process of setting budgets. So this screen will actually explain about what is going on, how you should, why you should think about setting your budgets, and then also explains in there the different avenues in which you can enroll, whether it is there at the game, through the kiosk, or through the GameSense info centers.
And the content here was carefully crafted, not saying that we wouldn't look for any revisions, but the tone of it needs to be carefully considered. That there is a specific tone that we are trying to adopt through the GameSense strategy. And we tried to carry that tone through the development of this project. That it's clear, that it's concise, that it's friendly, that it's easy to understand. And that's really the overall tone that we're trying to capture.
Some of the
And
feedback.
it's not nudging or advocating. It's laying out information for people to choose. That's something else I gathered, that I gathered from looking at these, and I gather that's part of the theory, too.
Yes, correct.
Some of the feedback from some in the Public Health Trust Fund Executive Committee is exploring even more concise than what that looks like in bullet points, perhaps, just given the nature of the
Yeah.
current speed by which people gloss over paragraphs.
Right.
But that has to be balanced with providing a good explanation.
Right.
And which is also something that the people at the DOA are helping us with, obviously.
Yeah, one of the features that I like is it's very easy to change the actual content and the wording on the tool or on the program, and that will enable us to kind of play around with some of the messaging through the evaluation process to hopefully settle on messaging that provides the greatest impact.
That's interesting. Can you have different messages on different machines, or is this everybody gets the same thing?
Everybody would get the same message, but you would be able to switch it out over time.
But you couldn't compare the effectiveness of message A against message B on the floor.
This
No.
has actually come up before.
Yes.
So it is because you're looking at an entire gaming floor, and we actually have to place this content on each of the games. So rolling something out like that can be potentially labor intensive. So that's one thing that we had cautioned in regards to rolling out different messages.
Right.
Because we want to be consistent in regards to our communication, if I were to sit down at a game, and then Mark sat down and we were having different messages, it
Right.
could be rather confusing. So that's why we were talking about one consistent message across the board.
But the very people who brought that up are the researchers, the Division of Addiction, because they want to,
Right.
measure uptick and effectiveness,
Right.
the two key components here, and an easy, well, not so easy, but a straightforward way to do it is to having, control groups, if you will.
But you could do it over time.
You
too.
could do it over time.
do it over
Yes.
time.
Absolutely, and that is
Right.
something we've discussed. Maybe after 60 or 90 days of evaluation on messaging, then go ahead and roll out another message and do that, continue to do that
Right.
comparison of enrollments.
Right.
Right.
Quick question, is this, kind of taking a step back, is this going to appear the same when somebody sits down to one of the multiplayer station games? As long as they're still inserting their rewards card, it's still going to, if I'm at the, the video blackjack game, it's still going to look the same as if I was sitting at a single slot machine.
Right.
May I take that?
Please.
So what we run into is the way to handle different games. So as I was mentioning, this directed message, or this display manager that we have where we've got a picture-in-picture, that's only for those systems where we have a touchscreen and we have the ability to take it over. When you're talking about, it sounded like one of those electronic table games where you
Right.
may have 5 or 6 players next to each other. We actually have a smaller screen, and it's called an LVDS, but it's a smaller screen that allows us, instead of, because we can't take over the pictures that are going on,
Right.
this small screen will have all of the same detail or content as the larger screen does.
And that actually would be a different slide deck. It looks slightly different, but the content is essentially the same. We decided not to show you that because it would
Right.
end up just being largely redundant.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So the next piece is just the terms and conditions. So just information about keeping your PIN safe, information that we're going to be using, researchers will be using this information, but identity won't be shared with anyone. That's really what the terms and conditions are, and obviously was created based on input from the DOA. Moving on to the next screen is where we would just enter the PIN. Now this PIN is part of your Marquee Rewards PIN. So it's not a secondary PIN that anybody needs to create to be part of play management.
Yeah. And that is an important point, that we wanted to make this as simple as possible. It needs to be integrated with the player reward card. That was actually directed by the commission earlier in the year. We want to make it as simple as possible so that they would have it would just be entered under the same PIN as they would have for the Marquee Reward card.
And then welcome. So this is where you would set up your play management choices. So it explains a little bit about setting up the budget. What the selection process would be is if I were to create a daily budget, I would select that budget, and then it would move me into the next. One thing to note, again, we didn't want to push anything onto the patrons, so everything is free form. So we don't send, our system does have the capability to send preset budgets. However, we had determined, or MGC had determined, that we'd like to have them all blank and allow the patron to select. So there's no mandatory amounts to select, there's no mandatory day, weekly, monthly. All of this is up to the patron to set their budgets.
And they can set they can set all three. They can set a daily, weekly, monthly, or they can just set one of the three, or two of the three.
And still along the way, you're allowing them to opt out and get back to the game.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure, and in fact, this was a development discussion early on, is allowing people to create an easy out. If it's very likely that somebody will see it, they'll want to explore it and see what it is, and then decide that it's not for them, that they don't want to do it. So we wanted to make sure that there's always an easy out, that they can cancel and return to the game. So I think almost every screen, if not almost every screen, has a button to return to the game. We want to make it as clear as possible, as simple to use as possible.
And just for clarification, because again, this is, they cancel out of actually the play management screens, but again, if you wanted to, the game is still live on the right-hand side, so they could actually still be playing when they're setting their budgets. I don't know, but it's an option. So moving on to the next one is
Oh, you
just,
can be playing, you can be playing on the right side as you're putting information in on the left.
yes, that was actually key to,
Interesting.
it's actually very important to our technology from Scientific Games, is that we don't inhibit the game at all when we
Right.
have our display manager popping
Right,
up.
right.
But it was also key to Penn. They were very concerned
Right.
about taking away from play.
Right.
So if you wanted to have both screens up and go ahead and hit it over here and play, and then go ahead and set my budget,
Right.
I can certainly do that.
Right, right.
It's very much like the TVs these days, right? You can go to the split screen and
Yeah.
the program continues, but you're browsing elsewhere.
Exactly that.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Okay, so the budgets have been set, and this is just showing you what each one would be. So I can select the daily and then enter the amount in, and then I can get into weekly and monthly, all up to me.
Right.
We do have one enforcement, and that they do need to select some kind of a budget for one of those, whether it was day, week, or month. If they were to leave everything blank and then tried to submit it, we do have a incomplete message that tells them they must at least select one. But they can still cancel out and proceed to the game.
Right.
And then once they've enrolled successfully, they do receive this message. One thing to note is we have a mention of a $5 food credit will be placed on their reward card. We're actually rewording that based on how Penn will be presenting the $5 food credit, so there will be a bit of a modification later.
Yeah. So that is working with Penn and how they're able to reward that credit and at what time frame they're able to reward that credit. It was initially anticipated that that the $5 food credit would be awarded as soon as somebody signs up, and talking about some of the technical difficulties of making that reward available immediately. While we still look to work towards that, at this point, it looks like the $5 food credit will be available within a 24-hour time period.
And then this shows them what, so this is actually displaying a budget that has been set and somebody who's actually been playing. So you can see what your actual spend is versus what my budget choices were. Now,
Now, does that come up every time you log on again?
no, what it does is we actually have it set so that you will need to go into the play management icon to see the status.
Okay.
However, if I were within one of the approaching notification messages, which we had selected, do you remember, was it 25 or 30?
50, 75?
50, 75, 100.
I
Right.
apologize. So
That's all right.
at those approaching limits, if I were to have played and reached that 50 and received my message, and then I move to another game, I will get that you've reached 50% message again automatically. So
When
it
you
does
log in.
remind them.
To the new machine? Okay.
Correct.
I like this, the actual spend. It gives patrons or players information about their actual gambling behavior in real time. And that's another piece and another important component to inform player choice
Right.
about how to move forward.
And one thing to note on this screen, we have an unenroll button on the bottom right-hand side. And this is actually an enhancement that the MGC asked us to put in our software so that we can allow the patron to do all of this at the game level without needing to go to a kiosk or go to the GameSense Info Center. We actually added in 2 new pieces to our product. The first piece is to modify your budgets at the game, and then the second piece is to unenroll. So if we'll move on to the next screen, after the status, these are the approaching notification messages that I had mentioned earlier. So it tells you that you're approaching the budget limit, you've spent 50% of your budget, and then it has a little play for fun, not to make money. Now, I read that to you purely because as we are going through these percentage notification screens, we are changing some of the verbiage.
And that is actually very important. There was extensive discussion about what should the messages be as you're approaching, when you reach, and when you exceed the budget that you had set. this is where we're starting off, and I think that this is a prime area where we will be looking to switch it up a little bit and see what impact that has through the evaluation process.
So the next one is your reached notification. So when you've reached that 100%, we send another message out telling you where you are, and then we have at the bottom a new informational message. And then the next one, so we didn't, our software, Cygames software, we have the ability to either hard stop a patron so they can no longer play at the games, or we can send informational messages. And so MGC has asked us to set up the software so that we only have informational messages. I received my 100% that I've reached, and now I'll continue to get updated at every 25% interval. So if you'll see, I have a 125%. I still can continue to play, but I am going to receive these messages about the gambling.
And these messages would be received every 25% after the 100%. And this was,
With the new percentage, so if
Correct.
somebody
Correct.
was at 175, that's what that would say.
yes.
Right.
And that was important, this discussion about what happens when somebody reaches 100%
Right.
of their budget. And the commission was clear that we don't want to stop the play. This is a tool for somebody to use if they
Right.
choose to use it.
Right.
Now, the next piece is that enhancement that I had mentioned earlier. So the request from the MGC was to allow modifications to limits at the game. So this is actually what the screen would look like. I would have what my current budget is, and then I can modify either the day, week, or month, or both. What we do is we actually, Mark, could you move to the next screen? So this is, we do enforce a PIN, so they do need to have the Marquee Rewards PIN to enter it to modify the changes. And once they've successfully entered the PIN, we move to the next screen, which is going in and putting my new budget in. And then the next screen will tell you that it's been successfully changed. Now, if you'll notice, it says the new limits now are active. That is also another configuration within the Scientific Games software. We can either have a cooling off period of, let's say, 24 hours, which they use actually in Australia and New Zealand, or in your case, again, we did not want to, MGC, I keep saying we, I feel like I'm part of the team.
No, you are part of the team.
So the MGC wanted to make sure that this wasn't punitive. So instead of making them wait for 24 hours to increase their limits, it actually takes effect immediately. And also on the other side, if they were to decrease their limits, it also takes effect immediately. And this happens across all avenues, or what we call touch points. So whether it's at the game, the kiosk, or if they were to get into a pre-commitment user interface, which is our product, if they get into there, any kind of changes will all be immediate and take effect.
Now, this is all based on the player card. So what happens when somebody just takes it out of the machine, but there may be still credits on the machine and doesn't cash out, let's say, the ticket out?
Now, is this when you're, when they're setting up their limits,
No,
changing
imagine
limits?
I'm playing. There's a
Uh-huh.
limit that I set. I haven't reached them, or I've reached 75, whatever, and I decide to take out my card
Mhm.
for whatever reason. Does the count continue on those limits?
Very
And
good
it
question.
assumes that it's the same player?
So we do have one limitation in regards to our software.
Yep.
The reason why a loyalty card is necessary is because that's the way we can track information.
Yes.
So if you were to, and this is a perfect example, if somebody had reached their limits and they didn't want us to track them anymore, they didn't want to see the 125%, they can certainly pull out their card and continue to play. Because that information isn't going against that specific player account, we can't add it to that play.
Right. But there could still be credits in the machine. You cannot count them.
Correct. We don't, because again, we wanted to stay away from that punitive.
Good.
Because they're allowed to continue to play, we don't enforce a lockup of the game and a force of credits being cashed out.
Yep. Thank you.
Can you tell from the tracking that that's what's happened?
That they've pulled it out to continue to play.
That they pulled it out and continued to play?
From the pre-commitment application, no, because I'm only getting information based on the carded play. And same with Penn's player tracking system, which we call a CMS. They can't track it. However, you could actually track it if you were to, because the slot itself is tracking, or the EGM is tracking all of that play.
Right.
So you can see a chain of events. So I can see when the card went in, what they played, when the card went out, and then continue play of those credits until cash out.
Right.
So I can
I
go to
see.
the slot management system
Right.
and see that timeline of play.
I take it that,
Interesting.
there is no closeout screen. I've finished for the day and I'm leaving. You just pull your card out and go away. So the normal way that the player stops is by pulling the card out,
That's correct.
right? Okay.
You can go, you may not be done for the day, you could just go to another
No,
machine.
I
and
understand
start
that,
another
I
session.
understand, but
Yep.
the normal way you
Yes.
stop playing that machine is whether you continue to play or want to stop playing is to pull out the card,
Yep.
right?
You would pull out the
And
card.
cash out,
No, I understand that, but as far as
play management.
play management
Yes.
is concerned,
Yes.
that's the way you end it, by
That is
pulling
it.
the card out.
That is it.
Whether you're going to continue to play or whether you've decided you're going to stop. Okay.
Yes.
got it.
Correct.
I assume at some point on the previous slide, you finish up your enrollment or you finish up your change limit, that eventually the game sense message goes away and the screen opens back up to reveal the voting. The
That's
split
correct.
screen goes away.
And then this is that other enhancement I was talking about where we can unenroll at the EGM. So what we've done is based on information from the MGC and DOA, what we've done is had some pre-written unenrollment remarks. So this will help everyone understand why they're unenrolling. And they're also consistent, which we'll see later, with our kiosk. So whether you're at the EGM or the kiosk, you will have these preset remarks about unenrollment to select from. And as you can see from the content, it says check all that apply, so they can actually select multiples.
And these were all designed by the DOA.
Yeah, I worked closely with the DOA to develop the unenroll messaging or reasons.
And all of this, just so that you know, all of these who unenrolled, when it happened, and what remarks they selected, all goes into our scientific games pre-commitment system. And so the DOA, or actually the MGC if you wanted to, can actually get into our application and run reports to find out exactly how many have unenrolled and why they unenrolled.
It's very valuable.
So once they've selected, then they would go ahead and hit submit, and then they'll have a unenrolled successfully. Now keep in mind, once I've unenrolled, the system, our scientific games pre-commitment system says, okay, they're no longer enrolled. So the next time this patron puts their card in the machine, they will get another prompt, would you like to enroll? And then if they select no, then we don't bother them for another 30 days.
But that first message could happen immediately, right? You
At-
don't wait for 30 days after an unenrollment.
Right. If you unenroll, the very next time you put your card into an EGM, you will get the
You will get
pop-up
that.
message. And then we move into the Game Sense icon.
And if I can talk just a second about the GameSense icon. So this was not originally anticipated when we talked about play management. This is different than play management overall. This is a development that originally, I think BCLC had requested, but I think that it fits very well with our overall GameSense strategy, GameSense brand, and it provides basic information on a number of different areas, including play management.
So this is the Game Sense. Once you select the Game Sense, and I apologize, I didn't mention this earlier, down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see like the diamond and the circle and another piece. That's what we call the dashboard. So that's where the patron can go ahead and move through that dashboard and make that selection of what they want to see on the screen. So they'll be able to move the dashboard over and get to the GameSense icon and learn about GameSense. So this would be what would happen once you select the GameSense icon. You'll have the information about the info center, play management, how slots work, GameSense tips, and exit. So all of this is provided once I select the icon.
And this is not tied to the player reward card. So you don't have to be enrolled in the Marquee Reward Card in order to view this information.
Yes, it will actually exist on Penn's dashboard no matter what. So if you don't have a card, you can still access it.
That's great.
Next one. And then this is just information. So this would have been, they selected the GameSense Info Center, and this will explain where it's located and how it works. Then the next one is just information about play management, how slots work, and then GameSense tips. So this is where your hotline, and also, again, we're positioning, you can also come over and visit the GameSense Info Center.
And we would, the hotline is actually the helpline for the Mass Council on Compulsive Gambling. I realize we need to make sure that that number is correct. I think
Oh.
it's not the right number, but we
Okay.
would want to be able to direct people to the helpline.
And then this is actually moving into the kiosk. So before we move into the kiosk screens, were there any other additional questions about the EGM content screens?
Look great.
Nope.
Oh, they look great.
All righty. So this is the.
No, I do have a question, actually. You have mentioned Australia and some
New
other
Zealand?
place from away. Some variant of this system is currently in use on machines in those jurisdictions, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And how long has it been up and running in those jurisdictions?
Oh, goodness, I want to say almost 3 years. Actually, this is where we developed our software. In Australia and New Zealand, they reached out to us. Actually, a company called Sky City had reached out to Scientific Games, or Bally at the time,
Right.
and had said, we'd like to work with you on creating a voluntary pre-commitment system.
Right.
So initially, our software was written based on their regulations. And then as we moved here, and we've also been partnering with OLG to roll out the same product out there in Ontario, then it continues to grow. So we initially worked with just a small set of regulations, and now that we have other jurisdictions that are looking at rolling it out, it's been very exciting for us to see the product grow.
Right, right.
And BCLC, correct?
Yes, and actually BCLC, OLG has rolled it out in one property.
OLG acronyms here.
Oh, I apologize, the Ontario Lottery.
Right,
Lottery and Gaming.
right.
They have actually taken, like you said, a variation of this product and rolled it out in one of their casinos. And then we have BCLC, which is the British Columbia Lottery Group. They are looking at installing in their lab and hopefully rolling it out in the next 6 months to probably a year.
Well, it's got a good track record then, and each jurisdiction, I guess, is trying slightly different variants, so the collected information that we get from all of that will be enormously helpful. Yeah, great.
You know, let me mention something. I was going to mention this later, but I think it's relevant. The stars really aligned really well for this effort. I think it's really exciting. There was Penn was a willing participant. Bally and Psy Games had just begun to do this elsewhere, and the modifications were, doable, not a big effort. So it's an exciting time,
Yeah.
I would say.
And I think that your mention of Penn being willing to do this, they have been a cooperative partner
Very
in
much
working
so.
on this. So
Many
got
ways, yeah.
the
Oh, the other
Mass
important.
Council and others, health folks and us and the operator. It's a great combination.
The other piece, of course, was that Penn had selected the Valley system as their casino management system. That was
Right.
perhaps the biggest alignment of the stars.
Right.
That's right. Trina, how long has OLG had the one property or one casino up and running? Do you know?
I want to say about 60 days.
Okay.
So not too long. However, that's actually a good thing that Mark's mentioning is although they've installed it at one site, they've actually provided a number of things for us to enhance our product. And so we're actually currently working on a new version of pre-commitment that'll have a number of configuration settings that would, for those of our customers that have installed the product and are looking at upgrading, we can possibly get additional enhancements to them within a year.
I would really hope to develop a close collaboration with those two jurisdictions, looking at what their experience is, how
Ontario
they're
and British
evaluating it.
Columbia.
Correct,
Yeah,
Ontario and British Columbia.
right.
And on that note, are any of those jurisdictions exploring, like us, the notion of evaluation, of, coming back and looking at uptake and looking at effectiveness in some form or another?
I do not know about Ontario. Maybe you do, Trina, but British Columbia, they put a heavy emphasis on evaluation of almost everything they do, similar to Massachusetts.
That would be a good guess, too. Thanks.
Great.
Okay, so moving into the kiosk screens. So this would be the initial prompt that you would see on the kiosk. And just to reiterate what Mark had told you, you've actually purchased 2 kiosks. So one will be out on the casino floor, and the second one will be part of the GameSense Info Center. So they'll touch the screen to move forward. And then there's just a number of questions that goes through, and you can learn more about GameSense. So it makes you think about what gambling is, what's going on with gambling.
I thought those odds were higher, but
What,
for a royal flush and 5 cards,
We will check
See,
our
they're high enough.
our
they
information.
are high enough,
Right.
yes.
So then this is the, or did you want to, I'm sorry, Mark?
No,
Did you-
no, I think it's just, there's an endless number of
Right.
options that we can add, change, edit for that piece of it. And I think it'll be fun to kind of mix it up sometimes, create new content for that, to keep people coming back.
Just a question, how do you exit out of games, of these screens? Do you go back to the what do you call the dashboard?
On the kiosk. Yeah.
So do you mind going back? Did we have a
Like
No.
for example, there.
touch the screen
you
to
know.
continue?
Yes.
Actually, it was, the way we created it, it went through each one of them. So we can certainly, that's one of those things where we wanted to receive input. So
Yep.
to maybe have a way to exit out and go to the main screen
Right.
would be a good option.
Return, yeah.
Sure.
Just after so many screens, somebody might lose their bearings, kind of like, well, let me start over, or,
I will write that down.
Yeah.
So on the main screen, we can go ahead and select any of the items. The next screen after this one for the play management is just walking you through,
Laura,
Oh,
just
I'm sorry,
just
sure.
a minute.
need a break.
oh,
Take your time. Take your time.
oh,
All set, Laurie? Okay, go ahead. Thanks.
so- sure. So we have the main screen. So then what we've done is we've selected screenshots that'll show you stepping through the process of setting up your budgets through the kiosk itself. So do you want to use play management? Yes, or return to dashboard? And then we advise, because you can go to any of these GameSense kiosks and actually receive the information without a marquee rewards card. At the point that they want to actually set their budgets through play management is when we do require them to swipe their card and put in their PIN.
In the GameSense kiosks, if you recall, they're on-site. They have a skin that is branded with GameSense, the GameSense logo, and is clearly a GameSense kiosk. The one, as you know, is in the GameSense Info Center. The other one will be placed on the opposite side of the gaming floor near the entrance to racing, also with a GameSense sign that would be above it that would direct people to it. And yeah, this is the same as the content for the EGM. Some of the screens look slightly different because we have a kind of a different landscape for it.
Right.
So I'll just move quickly through this. Any questions or comments, feedback on the GameSense kiosk or the EGM?
I had a quick question, and I saw it again as you go through the unenroll process and checking all the boxes that apply. Somebody hits number 14, I have a problem with gaming. Is there a way that when they hit submit, that for that particular question, maybe some information comes up about the hotline, or, I mean, that's really a telling clue that somebody has a problem if they're willing to stand there and punch it into the machine.
Right. It isn't in there now, but we can certainly explore what it would take to add a screen when you hit that button for another screen to automatically create it. Okay.
Definitely. We have that flexibility. We keep mentioning content.
Right.
And what that is just the programmers creating those screens and putting the information into it. The nice thing about doing something like that is that by going through content, we don't need to have it go through GLI and be retested.
Right.
So all of that is not affecting any of our systems. So we'll definitely research it.
Okay.
Next, we want to talk to you about the timeline. And as you can see, we have a go-live date of 12/8. But as Trina and I will describe, that 12/8 go-live date has a lot of activities and moving pieces between now and that date that we want to highlight for you.
The GLI approvals are approvals of the non-interference, I guess, of this software with the gaming software. Is that what GLI is going to be looking at?
Actually, what GLI is doing is because we added those additional pieces, so the change limits and the unenrollment at the game,
Right.
it actually affected the side game software. So because it affected ACSC, pre-commitment, and also our soft GMU, GLI needs to go through the process of verifying that everything is compliant, and they also we have given them a specific set of requirements for the MGC in regards to play management. So they will, because we're resubmitting another version of pre-commitment, they will go through that checklist and ensure that our software meets your requirements.
Okay.
So that's really what that is.
But that, you're saying, doesn't have to be done every time you add a new screen. Once that's done, new screens don't alter those parameters.
That's correct. So at the game level, what we have is it's called a soft GMU. So it's
GMU.
it's software. I know I was just about. It's software, but it's for a game monitoring unit. And what that does is that intermediary piece will allow the game to talk to the floor system. So that software is regulated, but that display, so whether it's the small screen or the picture-in-picture, that piece is our content,
Right.
and that piece is not regulated.
Got it. Thank you.
So just kind of going through the timeline that we've displayed here, as Mark had mentioned, there are a lot of moving parts, and there are a lot of items that if we were to, for some reason, not reach that goal, it could potentially push this date out. Certain things to notice are in regards to getting the content ready by the 19th of October. We do have a blackout period, and that's because we already have some the GTech project actually going on at Penn. So we were asked actually to go ahead and put out that blackout period because the resources not only at the MGC and also at Penn are actually focused on this project. So after that, then we have on November 9th, we have an MGC walkthrough. And what that is that week is there for you and others to come out and actually go through the system and ensure that that patron interaction is how it should be. And that is actually going to be conducted at the Penn Lab, because we're still working towards getting your lab created.
Right.
But this system walkthrough is of that's the GTEC system or the play management system?
The MGC system walkthrough is for play management.
Play management, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the GTEC install is all within this blackout? period.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
And
why
the-
it's on
and the
there.
GTEC install is the central management
Yes,
system.
yes.
that we're
Correct.
That's right.
Right.
And also to note, this MGC walkthrough, it is on Penn's property within their test lab.
Right.
But we've actually talked about, again, being very interactive with our partner and making sure that they're there to kind of listen to the comments and make their comments also.
Right.
This is going to be key to make sure that it's what you need. But if there was screen changes or maybe you would like additional functionality, again, those kinds of things will move the timelines out for us.
Right.
Then the next piece is just an installation on the production server. We're also doing training for the end users, and we're still finalizing the training, but in essence, we'll have 2 levels of training. We'll have the technical training that will be handled by Bally or Psy Games personnel, and that's how to use our pre-commitment user interface, how to walk people through the screens at the EGM, the kiosk, but then we also will have a secondary class which will be conducted by the GameSense individuals or the GameSense advisors. So you have a technical piece, but now you get this extra training on how to approach, how to explain, because the Penn personnel, their employees, will actually be interacting quite frequently with their patrons on the floor, and they will need to explain correctly how play management works.
This is going to be a fantastic tool to add to the GameSense toolkit. And I think that our GameSense advisors will take this and run with it in terms of how they approach their work at the casino.
Right.
I look to them to be kind of the champions of this. And where there's additional training and additional ways to promote it, I really hope to use them as a resource for this.
And then the next piece is the property, what we call UAT, but that's user acceptance. So they're going to be going through the system and making sure that they agree with everything. Because not only are we using play management at the games, but we also are bringing that in with the Penn content that's already there. There are different ways of downloading credits at the game or welcoming their patrons. So we ask that Penn actually go through user acceptance testing and make sure that they agree with everything that's is going to be installed. And then after property user acceptance, then we install the content on the floor and we go live. So at this time, we're targeting the 8th of December, but as mentioned, based on certain unforeseeable items,
Right.
we could scoot out.
Right.
My concern that if it gets pushed out beyond December 8th, that we really should look to not go live until after the first of the year. Just in terms of resources to get it out there, the holiday period is just too chaotic.
Right.
And as the Division on Addiction pointed out, if we are looking to kick it out until after the first of the year, it could be an interesting way to position it as a New Year's resolution tool.
Right. Turn a flaw into a feature, right?
Correct.
Well, comments, questions? That's a terrific presentation.
This is great.
Yeah, really good, really happy and about the progress, about all the efforts that you've been coordinating, because there's many people behind you and joining in the effort. Some literally behind you, by the way. But thank you for this great presentation.
Yeah, I think back to the time not too long ago when we spent 2 or 3 meetings, not successive meetings, but 2 or 3 meetings, really trying to work through conceptually what we were trying to do here. And I think many of us started out from different places, and through that discussion came up with a concept on which we settled, and I think this really hits it square on. It is intuitive. It's not a nanny nag. It's a true tool for managing this play and keeping it fun, and allowing the user to decide whether it's meeting those tests, and set up at the same time to capture the information that we need in order to figure out what to do with it after the test period's over. So I think that from the layout here, and I have no reason to doubt that the rollout will be the same, I think this is a home run. I think it's very exciting. This is the first in the nation approach to this issue, and I think it's an approach that commends itself to users, and will be a very helpful tool to those who choose to buy in, and those who don't choose to buy in are free not to. And I think a lot of credit also goes to Penn National for working with our team to make this a reality. But I think it's a very, very exciting moment. So congratulations.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. The next item then. All right.
You want to give a little break?
Oh, that's a good idea. You want to take a short break? Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll resume in about 5 minutes.